most of my talk happens to be to lefties. I do change the way I speak when I'm talking to them to appeal to what I believe to be their value system.
What do you do, like Robert De Niro or something?
No, I mean, I try to appeal to their values.
Hey, you better get with the job guarantee or you sleep with the fishes.
This is the MMT podcast with Patricia and Christian Riley. Hi, my name's Christian Riley and welcome to episode 9 of the Modern Monetary Theory podcast. You can find us on Twitter at MMT Podcast. Me and my co-host Patricia put this series together to help you demystify economics and understand the profound effects the things economists believe have on our lives. If this is your first encounter with MMT, the first thing you need to know is that in many countries in the world today, taxes paid to central government don't fund government spending. The pounds or dollars that are being taxed off you that you think pay for public services are just deleted out of existence from a spreadsheet at your country's central bank. When that same government wants to spend a pound or dollar, it creates a new pound or dollar out of thin air using data entry keystrokes at the same central bank. We go into this in depth in episodes 1, 2 and 3. In the UK, US, Australia and Canada, to name a few, we have currency that works like this. The government is the only entity that can issue currency, and we say that the government is the monopoly issuer of currency. To get you to accept their otherwise worthless pieces of paper as currency, the government makes you need their tokens by imposing a tax on you denominated in that government's special token, its unit of account. In the UK, we have the pound. Now you need to earn pounds rather than gold or seashells to pay your tax bill, and the government can now pay you pounds to do things, to have public services and infrastructure, to provision itself. Notice the moment the government imposed its tax on you, it made you unemployed. It made you need some work that pays in pounds. Before the tax, you were not unemployed. You might have been doing nothing, but that's not how we define unemployment. Unemployment is people looking for paid work in the government's unit of account, the pound or the dollar. The government creates unemployment by levying a tax and then solves unemployment by hiring you. If the government doesn't spend enough money into the economy, the result is not everybody will get a job. If the government ever spent so much money that everybody had a job, and then that government still kept spending currency into existence, the result would be inflation. So, many economists and politicians hold this idea that unemployment is bad, but it's a price worth paying to stabilize the economy, to keep inflation at bay. It's probably no coincidence that the people content with this system often never fully experience the reality of unemployment. MMT says there's a way to solve the problem of involuntary unemployment without creating inflation, namely the job guarantee scheme. Instead of unemployed people waiting in reserve for the private sector to hire them and having a miserable life, the job guarantee is a scheme where anyone willing and able to work can have a federally funded minimum wage job. We go into this in a lot of depth in episode 4, so give that a listen. It's a really good way of understanding why this isn't communism, it's not work for the dole, it's just an easy way to solve a problem that monetary systems deliberately create, namely unemployment. So at the moment we have a monetary system which uses what we call automatic stabilisers. They're features of government budgets to dampen the effects of fluctuating GDP. When unemployment gets too low and inflation starts to rise because of all the increased earning and spending in the economy, tax payments to the government automatically increase. So that takes money out of everybody's pockets and cools the economy down. Economists call the pounds circulating in the private sector available to buy things aggregate demand. Tax payments to the government lower aggregate demand. Eventually, a lower level of aggregate demand results in a rise in unemployment. But instead of the newly unemployed people's income dropping to zero, benefits, welfare payments from the government to the private sector increase automatically increasing the deficit, automatically increasing aggregate demand, and countering the business cycle. These payments from the government to the private sector are another automatic stabilizer. So you can see the government creates a monetary system to provision itself, which creates unemployment. Then it employs the people it unemployed to do the provisioning, but then it doesn't spend enough to give everyone a job, and yet still pays out money to keep those people unemployed. What MMT says is, let's pay those people who enter this buffer stock of unemployed labour to do a job if they want one, so that when the economy moves out of recession and the private sector is ready to hire again, they can hire a person with a track record of employment, because studies show that employers prefer to hire people who already have a job over hiring unemployed people. So the job guarantee scheme helps the private sector in this respect. If you understand the government spending part of MMT, you know that a government with a sovereign currency can't run out of money because it creates its own currency, and therefore you know that that same government can afford to give everyone a job. If you understand the currency analysis of MMT, but don't understand why the job guarantee is part of MMT, I urge you to understand the job guarantee as an automatic stabiliser, rather than just maybe a good thing that maybe left-wing people might like and right-wing people might not like, because I'd say it's crucial to your understanding of macroeconomics. As usual, we invite you to ask us questions and we'll do our best to answer them. We might not get time to answer everybody, but that's our aim, and if we can't answer you, we'll do our best to point you towards resources that will answer your questions. You can follow us and say hi on Twitter at MMT Podcast, or there are details on other ways to get in touch at the end of the show. In this episode, me and Patricia talk a little bit about the recent UK budget, automatic stabilisers, and how to move forward with MMT in terms of activism, because I hope you'll agree things need to change. Thanks for listening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MMT podcast. It's just me and Patricia this week. How are you doing, Patricia?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty excited about this thing that I tried to get off the ground, the MMT Activist Manifesto.
Oh, yeah.
And I floated it in the Modern Monetary Theory for Real Progressives group, because I just thought that was probably the largest group of people who've got a good grasp of MMT, good enough grasp of MMT. And the reason that I did it was because I felt that after Bill Mitchell had been to the conference, that a lot of people, I got the impression, I wasn't there, you were there, and maybe you'd want to reflect on this, but he sort of seemed to intimate that some people felt that the job guarantee was optional. It was one of a bunch of proposals. And, you know, like, we could spend on green infrastructure, we could spend on more railway, or we could have a job guarantee. And I think that was the impression I was getting from Bill's write-up of the conference. So I thought, I think maybe we need to write down what MMT is about as succinctly as possible in terms of a movement, and see whether I'm right or wrong. See,
I thought Bill considered it, essential to the MMT cause.
Exactly. But I'll tell you why I think. I tell you what I think the mistake that's happening. To see if you agree with this. What Warren Moser will say is, okay, the evidence the evidence that the deficit is too small is bodies in the unemployment line.
Yeah.
So the deficit needs to increase. So what we can do is lower taxes or increase spending, depending on your politics.
Yeah.
He likes to say it like that, and I love that he says it like that. And it really does bring everybody into the tent, And so I think that really resonates with a lot of people on the left and the right, depending on your politics. I'm keeping the politics out of this, and then they sort of take the feeling that they get that Warren gives them from that statement, and goes, oh, and that applies to the job guarantee. That could be, if you were to the left of centre, you could have a job guarantee as well. But really, the job guarantee is there because no matter what you do, whether you increase spending or reduce taxes or both, you can never get the right deficit. You can never get it perfect where everyone's at full employment with no inflation. You're either going to spend too much because it's just impossible to get perfectly, or you're going to spend a little bit too little and there's going to be unemployment. And what we're saying is, at that end where we've spent not enough and there's unemployment, instead of using the NAIRU system where we keep people unemployed to keep interest rates down, let's keep that buffer stock idea, but let's have those people who want a job in that buffer stock have a job. To not do that is to let that resource go to waste, and the pathologies of unemployment kick in. And it's not there because Bill's left wing. It's not there because Warren and all the core MMTers are lean to the left and they want a job guarantee. It's there as an automatic stabilizer. Yeah, it's got a great moral purpose as well, but it's there as an automatic stabilizer because you just can't, with the best will in the world, get the deficit exactly right when you're planning it. There's going to be some people who aren't employed by all your fiscal policy.
I think some unemployment, without the job guarantee, some unemployment is inevitable. I don't think, So,
because politicians would rather craft a policy that would rather see unemployment than inflation. We've been over this, haven't we? They would rather, they're going to lose office if.
But it's very difficult to target, to target the people who are unemployed. I mean, now we have very long discussions on the internet, even amongst lefties, about how much unemployment there actually is and how much underemployment there actually is, and theorizing about how many people out there might actually want a job but given up looking for one. And we don't really know until we guarantee people a job and give them the opportunity, to have one should they want one. We won't really know. So it's really difficult for a government to direct spending where unemployment is. To eliminate it is
sort of top down, centrally planned. It's impossible to do. So that's why we always say with the job guarantee, it's federally funded. So that means the government spends the money into existence, and it's locally administered, which means we get away from that idea of it's big clunky government not knowing what the people on the ground want.
But I mean, there is an ideological aspect that I'm completely. There's definitely an ideological aspect to the job guarantee, but that doesn't necessarily mean that contradict the fact that Bill might see it as essential. I think some people, particularly on the right, tend to believe that that unemployment or the fear of unemployment is an incentive for workers to work harder. And it's that's an ideological standpoint. I disagree with you that the job guarantee as it exists in MMT is not there because Bill's ideological. It's there because there's a value system behind it.
True, true. But what MMT is saying is you can't plan with fiscal policy to employ everybody unless you just go, right, we're just going to spend a load, so that's going to make sure that nobody's unemployed. Then you get inflation. So no government's going to do that. So we have to understand that it's always going to fall short, and there's going to be involuntary unemployment, and the only way to guarantee get everybody has a job is to guarantee them a job.
Yeah, but I mean, we targeted employment. We targeted full employment without a job guarantee. It used to be a target before the 1970s.
Yes, but they didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That was the best they could do then.
Exactly. So Keynesianism was around, but it hadn't gotten to the point where these core MMT economists have figured out this is how we do it. This is how we get full employment and price stability. That's why that's why our research centres were set up. That's where our initiatives come from. We're trying to create full employment and price stability.
Yeah, but there is an ideological standpoint against full employment on the basis that the right wingers keeping people afraid of
maybe,
jobs.
But
there is. I mean, not all of them, but some of them.
But
do
let's try and take the politics out of it and go. If they want to take. Economics-wise, people argue against full employment because of inflation.
Yeah.
And that's again,
we can get rid of that straight away.
The job guarantee goes, no, this is full employment and price stability, because we recognise that the currency is a monopoly, and the monopolist sets price. We set the price level as the government when we spend on something. So if the job guarantee wage is £10 an hour, that is the pound is now anchored to at that level. To that's what a pound's worth as an anchor. Yeah,
and there was, in light of the recent budget of the what's his name? Our Chancellor, by the way, Philip Hammond. That's what's his name?
It's that relevant. Yeah.
He's that important.
The guy.
Anyway, he was talking about how employment was at all high, and that they had achieved that, and that basically given it a marvelous view of the economy. And I was discussing this with people online about whether the UK economy was at full employment or not, and whether if Labour was to spend on all its programmes, it would actually need to tax or not. And if it does need to tax, what's the problem with saying that taxes fund spending? Well, that was kind of the argument that I was. It's never okay to say taxes fund spending.
Well, again, like I would draw on, what Warren Mosley has that thing of saying, that's the strength and the weakness of the political system is that it reflects the will of the people, and if that's where the people are, that they, it's not our fault. We're doing everything we can to change the mindset, but if that's the public's mindset, politicians are having to talk down to them, and it's very frustrating. And again, that's why I've got a really good friend who's interested in MMT, and he's I said, you guys doing a budget special? And,
should do.
And this is kind of it.
Is this our budget special?
I think we had a quick chat before I pressed record, and neither of us really paid that much attention to it. And if I can speak for you, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, it's because
I listened to half of it.
You can't watch it without, or listen to it, or take in any reporting of it. Without the household analogy comes up, we've got to pay our bills, we've got to pay our way, we're sinking into debt, and I see lefties all over Twitter going, "Oh, the Tories have tripled the debt," or whatever, and it's like, "Oh God, I stand with you, but that's not the way to take down the Tories," or
they fight them on the turf, and the moment. Yes, at the moment that's Labour's strategy, and as we've been trying to get them to lay off it. But I think it's there is an element of they don't. There's an element of fear in there of not wanting to rock the boat too much, or say something that is just without knowing how to sell it, I guess, to the average person.
Yeah, I would talk to a politician the other week at that thing I was at, that you were at, and that politician said, politics is about the possible, or one of those catchphrases, sort of, okay, if you say so. You're the one getting listened to.
It's funny because I've been given by all sorts of, and I'm very insistent on this point on social media. If any of you guys dare to follow me on social media, I do insist on your head be it. I do insist on letting go of the household analogy, and
well, we can do that as activists.
I know, but even of politicians, I do demand it, and the reason why is because it's very frustrating for me to see, the far right being so bold in their speech and being and everybody's so shocked about what they say and horrified about what they say, and they keep winning. And we're like, oh, I'm scared of saying this because, they might not like it. It seems absurd.
Taxes don't fund spending.
But the president of Brazil can say that he wants to kill gay people, and that's apparently that wins the elections.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to, you're not going to go far without finding a centrist that wants to defend the right wing, basically. But so I think this tweet from Richard Phillips at Richie Phillips sums up the reason why a lot of MMTers might stay away from the budget. It said, 10 minutes into today's news and my wife has told me to switch it off due to excessive huffing and tutting. And that's exactly, I saw that tweet and I thought, yep, that is why I am not watching the budget. So I responded to my friend, Damien, and I said to him, I think the MMT take is going to be they're not spending enough because unemployment.
Well, duh.
Or the deficit's not big enough. That's literally it. And whatever they're taxing on, given that, unemployment's where it is and underemployment's where it is, whatever they're taxing, it's the wrong thing. And and especially VAT, they're very regressive, punishing taxes. I mean, I get why they might want to keep taxing alcohol and tobacco. I get that. They're trying to, punish,
discourage, drinking,
but they are punitive
smoking.
things. But
I
think if they want to stop people being alcoholic smokers,
maybe
they should just make the world, make the country a nicer place to live in.
Exactly.
Would be a better thing. But
give them healthcare. Maybe
people take this stance of the smokers and drinkers. We're funding the NHS because of our, all the VAT that we pay, and it's like, no, that's not how government spending works.
Yeah. But I mean, even to me, the most annoying thing about the budget is the fact that everything is talked about from the government side. So I would much rather Phil to say...
Sorry, who's he again? Is he
the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Right, okay. What do they do for the checks? What, Yeah, right. So Phil,
something to do with
the purse strings, the purse strings guy. Yeah. So
actually, it's our logo, isn't it? The thingy. Anyway, I'd rather he would say our Chancellor spoke about we need 100,000 nurses. That's our estimate, and we're going to hire 100,000 nurses, and we estimate it might cost this, but not fix a number.
Yeah.
What he does is he starts with a number and then he sees what he can achieve with it.
Well, this is what the MMTers should say, and it came up in some of our online conversations recently, let the deficit float around the economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want concrete objectives.
Yeah. Or you could let's talk about spending in real terms.
Yeah.
We're spending on 100,000 nurses.
But that's the thing.
Rather than we're spending X pounds, we're spending 100,000 nurses, and I don't actually know what that's going to cost, but they're there and we can employ them.
Yeah, and I know what real effect that has on my life. Like when they say we're going to give 20 billion, what does that mean?
It's like most of political commentary these days. It's just completely content free. There's nothing in there that you can understand the world better or understand our political climate better through. The numbers are abstracted away from everything else. Yeah. So in order to make headlines, so when you drill down into it, the statements are meaningless and they generate meaningless headlines. Mm-hmm. And people have conversations with very low information. Yeah. And I think that's just the way they like it, really.
It switches people off, though.
Exactly. I think when it switches people off, that means things are going to stay the same. Or they're going to get slowly worse until some right-winger comes along and says, you know why it's really bad, right? Foreigners.
Yeah.
And then, we leave the EU, and then, Brazil votes for, what's his name? Bolsonaro.
Bolsonaro, yeah. I think that's his name, yeah.
Yeah.
Charming man.
And, so they... it does play into right-wing ideology, a mood of anti-politics, because we're already racing to the right. Mm-hmm. So if people who would be engaged, who knew that if we could, if we had a population that understood MMT, understood that government spending is our income, government spending is our savings, you shouldn't be cutting back on that, because we don't have enough money on aggregate. We don't have enough money in the economy to employ everybody and meet our savings desires. Mm-hmm. If we had a economically literate electorate, we wouldn't be having these problems. The austerity policies would have been laughed out of existence. Anyway, that's why we're here, isn't it? We're here to try and spread MMT, which, in case, dear listeners, you don't know, stands for modern monetary theory.
I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I did not hear anything to do with the environment on the budget.
That's it. What they're doing is trying to get everybody obsessed with the numbers. The numbers are just as honest, just a scoreboard, as we're very fond of saying. How can you run out of emails? How can you run out of points if you're the point keeper of a game? How can But that's what they've got everybody obsessed over. And here we are.
Yeah, and then obviously they give forecasts about how borrowing is going to fall, and they present that as a kind of an achievement.
Yeah, exactly. The government borrowing its own currency that it creates out of thin air every time it spends. So, it's not so much an analysis of the budget. It's
moaning about it.
But it's more of an analysis of budget culture.
Yeah.
These are... wasn't it Martin Luther King who said something about budgets being moral documents or something? Yeah. Google me.
I'm going to Google it.
Google me, P-Dog. You don't mind if I call you that? I think we know each other. I do,
actually.
Okay, all right then. What do you prefer?
No, I like it.
Yeah, all right.
P-Dog. I think somebody else called me that a long time
ago. I know. It's now it's
People
out of
seem to have problems with my name.
Now it's out of my mouth. I'm like, that's not quite right, is it? It's just this.
A budget is not a financial document, it's a moral one. Yeah.
Maybe
Martin
I said
Luther King Jr.
Did he say it?
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, well, I was right. I love being right. Can we...
I'm going to Google it again because I don't trust this source.
Can we mark the occasion? It's 30th of October. Christian was right.
I can't corroborate it. Oh, yeah, a budget is a moral document. It is sometimes attributed to Martin Luther King.
Well, this was one of those times.
Yeah, right now
is that all right?
We're continuing on that trend and we're attributing it to him. Okay, fine.
So I'm hoping that we've put the job guarantee thing to bed slightly, in that, like, you and I are lean to the left. A lot of people we meet lean to the left. A lot of people that we meet on the internet lean to the left. And I love Mosler's rhetoric when he says, "No, look, we can increase. We can."
Because he tries to be ideology neutral.
I like the idea that he will say, "Look, we can fit this around your politics, but the one indisputable thing is the deficit's not large enough if there's unemployment.
Yeah.
It's just a point of logic." Mm-hmm. So then you guys can fall out about how you want to increase the deficit. You can increase the deficit by lowering taxes on, well, they will call them in the States the middle class. Here we'd call them like general working class, I guess, here in the UK. I think those terms mean different things in our different countries. But if you lower taxes on that group, of which I am in, we spend our money. So that's going to be somebody's income. That's going to help the economy, and then you can, in a country like ours where we closed a load of A&Es under the doctrine that we can't afford it. Which hopefully, if you've been listening to our podcasts, you understand that afford is a meaningless term when it comes to.
Otherwise, go and watch the other 8 episodes.
Yeah, it's a meaningless term when it comes to the government. The government spends money into existence when it spends, when it plans to spend, And when the budget gets signed off, the Parliament tells the Bank of England to credit bank accounts necessary to make their policy initiatives happen. So that's how that happens. It's done with keystrokes. And so all those people that were laid off under austerity, the way the NHS shrank since the imposition of austerity, that could all be reversed. That could be reversed at the stroke of a pen. Because what opponents of government spending will say is, well, you can't just spend willy-nilly because it's going to create inflation. And what MMTers say is, no, it'll only create inflation if we hit full employment. And you're trying to buy a resource that doesn't exist anymore.
There's also
competing with the private sector.
A lot of people forget, actually, that some types of government spending is actually deflationary. I mean, in the US, MMTs in the US are making a case that what they call Medicare for all, or universal health care, might actually require tax decreases as opposed to tax increases.
Yeah. That's a very good point. So if the state takes over funding Medicare, or they have a universal healthcare system like we have, such as it is in the UK, under attack as it is, it's still there, hanging in there. But if they switch to that system, a lot of people in the private sector are going to lose their jobs. A lot of admin people, they're going to lose their jobs. So
it frees up resources.
Yeah, and again, Mosler was saying that's a deflationary event. You know, if you don't cut taxes, because apparently Bernie Sanders was saying, I'm going to increase taxes to pay for the Medicare for all. And it's like, well, if you do it that way around, you're going to have a lot of unemployed people, lower aggregate demand being the money in people's pockets. You're going to be taking more money out of the economy. And that is a recipe for a disaster. See,
that's exactly what I think would happen here in something like, for example, universal childcare. You know, if I know we have some universal childcare credits system at the moment, but it's expensive.
Yeah, we have child benefit.
Yeah, but if it was,
it's very low. It'd be like giving working single parents get tax credits and things like that, and so it's targeted. It's nearly like basic income, really.
Yeah, but childcare is still too expensive for many people to actually decide that working is worthwhile while you are taking care of a child. So, and I'm not suggesting here that everybody should work when they have. Obviously, this is a personal choice.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm against work. That's why I'm doing this podcast.
Yeah, but if funding childcare fully and making it universal and free, like the NHS, would free up people who do want to do jobs and who do want to do other types of employment, which, let's face it, is more likely to be women, then that, again, frees up resources, and it might end up being deflationary. Who knows? But
it wouldn't be deflationary with a job guarantee, and again, we circle back to this idea.
A job guarantee.
It's an automatic stabilizer. So let's just talk about automatic stabilizers for a second. So the way I understand it, jump in if you think I'm wrong, P-Dog. Come on. I think so. I think, if anybody's listening to this, you got any opinions about the dog, a dog with a W.
What does it even mean?
I don't know. It's just like, it's your street name, right?
Oh, right.
Come on. P-Rock. Anyway, look, we're getting sidetracked.
It reminds me of P. Diddy for some reason.
Yeah.
That's what it was reminding me of. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I liked Ken Dodd. So automatic stabilizers. If somehow the deficit is too high, there's you're going to see inflation because unemployment gets too low and people are spending too much. The automatic the economy on aggregate is overheating. right? So what you're going to see there is the automatic stabilizer of taxation. So people are going to be paying, the economy on aggregate is going to be paying more taxes to the government at that end of it. And that's supposed to cool off the economy. That's the way I understand.
Is that an automatic stabilizer then?
Yeah, that's why I understand it. Yeah,
okay.
so that was kind of under Clinton when it got to a surplus. I mean, Google it. This could be another Martin Luther King moment.
Yeah, it could be.
Because I don't actually think I'm lucky enough to be right twice. But at the lower end, the automatic stabilizer is so the deficit's too low. People are losing their jobs. Instead of their income dropping to zero, the payments to the people who have lost their jobs from the government goes up. So the deficit increases.
You're right.
Am I right?
Oh my God.
That's too far. I'm going to go for a hat trick. Right, so let me, while I'm on this streak.
Okay. So what you're saying
while
then,
I'm on this streak, I'd just like to say Die Hard is a Christmas movie. All right, don't even Google that.
It is a Christmas movie. I know
exactly. All right. Well, you know. Right. So, wow. So at the lower end, and I don't know if you agree with this, Pista, but what?
Make up your mind. Choose a
Well,
choose
it's just gonna keep changing.
Okay. You know, fine.
I'm rocking the P.
Make your point. I don't know. People have problems with my name. They make up all sorts of things. This is not the first time this has happened.
Is it not? Right.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you what they called me in the past.
Okay. Well, I would just keep guessing.
I'm wiser than that.
So, look. Right. So back to this automatic stabilizer thing, P-Dog.
Okay.
So at the lower end, the payments to the government, payments from the government to the newly unemployed people as unemployment is rising goes up. So the deficit goes up automatically without any kind of policy or fiscal adjustment. And that's why it's called an automatic stabilizer. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we have those now, I suppose, with unemployment benefit.
Yeah.
Obviously, the harder government... this is the issue, that those automatic stabilizers, I mean, a lot of people in the left sees them merely from the moral perspective, and obviously there is an element of morality in it. But they also serve to protect the economy in general from a shock. And what the Tories are doing are making it harder and harder for people to claim their benefits and to claim their automatic stabilizers, to claim unemployment benefits.
Which is kind of even counterproductive to their own agenda.
It is.
Because they're supposed to be, hey, look, we know economics, we're, responsible and responsible spenders. And actually, if they knew what they were doing by shredding that safety net.
They're hacking away at the safety net, not just of the people, of the individuals, but of the economy as a whole.
Exactly. So cutting away that automatic stabilizer it's not even right wing.
Yeah, it's just downright foolish.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm saying about the job guarantee is that's why it's in there, and that's why it's not just Bill, it's Bill Mitchell, it's all of the core MMT economists. I've put it in there. And Bill's probably to the left of most of them.
Only, right? I mean, he's way left.
It's fair enough, but I think I don't want to speak for him because we're going to have him on the show pretty soon.
I think he from what I gather, and we can confirm with him, but he would nationalise the banks.
Fair enough, but what I'm saying is on the job guarantee, he's not doing it. He's not, and all of the MMT economists are not insisting on it because it's a political thing. Obviously, it is a policy measure, but it's not. They're not doing it on ideological grounds. They're doing it on the grounds that there needs to be an automatic stabiliser. There is one at the moment, and there's a much superior way to do what that automatic stabilizer does. Namely, so it's a buffer stock policy, so it's a buffer stock of labour, and the unemployed people are... and
it expands and contracts with the business cycle.
Exactly, and it works counter-cyclically. And so what you get is with... this is a riff that Ellis Winningham has, and I really like it. And he says, there is a job guarantee at the moment, but when you're unemployed, your guaranteed job is to stay at home and have a miserable life to defend inflation.
And get paid peanuts for it.
Exactly. You know, that's your job. And I like that, because it's like, yeah, so instead of doing that with unemployed people, they want a job. Although that's the definition of unemployed.
They're
looking for a job. And there is stuff that needs doing. We can definitely afford it, because as we know, taxes don't fund spending. You know, as long as something is happening with that money, which is, again, why the job guarantee, you can argue for basic income if you want, but you still need the job guarantee as an automatic stabilizer. You can you know, you can argue for child benefit or tax credits and things like that. They're all forms of basic income as I see it. You know, you've got to have to target it. Universal basic income is not going to do anything apart from create inflation. But the job guarantee is there to replace the automatic stabilizer that we've already got. So in terms of it being, you know, when we're talking to people who are right of centre about this, or they're even our left of centre friends probably have an inner libertarian or something. You know I have, and you know, you have to be able to talk about it in terms that appeal to them. Not deceptively, but it's, and that's why I say we need to talk about it in terms of it being an automatic stabilizer rather than a moral imperative to make sure everybody has a dignified life, which is something I also strongly believe, and it's very easy to make that case. But
it depends. I mean, this is the thing, because it's a good time to mention that it's really, as MMT activists, at least in the UK, most of our work has been talking to other Labour Party members and progressives who actually want change, you know, who tend to be on the left. In the US, the battle is slightly different in the sense that they, you know, the people that we speak to, at least that I speak to on a daily basis, and to whom I try to introduce MMT to, they don't see socialism as a dirty word, for example. So I am free to talk about a value system which is in line with their socialist values.
Sooner or later, even if you're talking to left-wing people who are aligned with you ideologically and you've got the same value system, sooner or later they or you are going to have to explain it to somebody who's not a lot. Otherwise, it's going to stop there. You know, that it's not going to spread beyond there. So it's important that we all, even though we're talking to people who are aligned with us ideologically, that we talk about it in terms that people who aren't aligned with us ideologically can understand. So again, that's why I say the job guarantee, and even Warren Mosler said he got into the habit of starting to call it a transition job, because that's the other aspect of it that should appeal, that should look non-ideological, which is, let's say we're talking to somebody who's right of centre, and like, well, we don't want too much government in things, you know. Ideally, we would like the private sector to employ these people, and they're in the job guarantee. Well, the job guarantee is there to get them ready for private sector employment. It's called a transition job.
But I do think it's important to emulate the values of whoever you're speaking to. I mean, I happen to, most of my talk happens to be to lefties. I do change the way I speak when I'm talking to them to appeal to what I believe to be
what do you do, like Robert De Niro or something?
No, I mean, I try to appeal to their values.
You better get with the job guarantee, or you sleep with the fishes.
I'll give you an example. Are you done, by the way? Are you done? I'll give you an example. My mother happens to be a businesswoman.
My mother. Sorry.
I see you're getting
right.
My mother, a businesswoman. A businesswoman.
Are you done?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll just see what you...
Okay. So my mother is a businesswoman, and I know that I have to frame things to her in a way that she understands. So I highlight the fact that, you know, she needs a pool of customers for her business to thrive, and that's how I portray the job guarantee and the idea that, you know, if there was a guaranteed set of demand, then she would have more security in her business and a more successful business.
So
overall.
there you go. It's like it is a transition job.
Yeah. She's, you know, she's not a hardcore right winger, so there's, you know, the empathy does work with her quite well, and I'm not being prejudiced towards right wingers. I'm sure they're lovely people, but you know, but left wingers do, you know, the empathetic arguments do work quite well with left wingers, and to me especially the idea, you know, a job guarantee that is of paramount importance, because the idea of somebody being left out, excluded from the economy on a permanent basis, is an abhorrent idea to me. I don't think anybody deserves that.
So, yeah, I mean, I like your take that say that the left is generally, you know, more empathetic. You know, obviously that it's nice and it's flattering, and I identify as a left wing person. But where we, if I could say we as the left, lose is our opponents get to go, you're just doing empathy, which anybody can do, and you haven't done the maths.
I am with you on that. Yes,
and you haven't done the maths.
We need the maths.
Yeah, everybody that isn't, you know, economic literate, they haven't done the maths, and you know that charge sticks, and you know, we go down with it, and you know, which again is why I'm trying to make sure that everybody understands the MMT job guarantee as a thing put together by economists as a practical measure, as a automatic stabilizer for the economy. Yeah, it's great as well that nobody has to have it be involuntarily unemployed. That's great. That's the moral argument. And, you know, we'll have a much better society and everything. But to the people who go, well, that's just a letter to Santa Claus. You know, why don't you give everybody a pony? We come back and go, no, it actually makes sense. It'll be exactly the same as it is now, except people will be working, and also we would have a decent wages. We need to dive in and say that. Again, I think some people mistake the job guarantee for a system where the government will tell you you're not allowed to not work. And no, it's just for people who want a job. You could still, you could still be workfare. You could still, exactly. You could still be on the dole. You could still be between jobs. It's for those people who want a job. I mean,
I want to emphasize this again, because people compare it with workfare, compare it with what Ed Miliband was offering in 2015. What Ed Miliband was offering in 2015 was a limited program for 6 months. It was a placement program in private sector jobs where the government basically paid the wages for people to work in Tesco's or in Sainsbury's or in for corporations, and it was limited to under 25. So it's completely different.
It's kind of public money going into propping up corporate profits in a way.
It doesn't work as an automatic stabilizer.
It's probably well meaning. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like I say, that's why I just really want to hammer on why the job guarantee is part of MMT. It's not because it came out of left wing thought and now they're trying to get this sort of socialist measure in through the back door. It's like any system like ours, a monetary system, if you're an MMT, you know the currency analysis, you know how you know money flows, that taxation creates a demand for the government's tokens. We call them pounds here in the UK. And then that makes you need pounds, so you go out and get a job, and they pay you, and that's how it works. And they can create any number of pounds to provision themselves as the government. The government might want you to build a road or a bridge, and they get their legitimacy from being voted into power on a platform of policies that said, we're going to build this road, we're going to build this bridge. Okay, so we've all agreed to it now on aggregate. Now the government needs to have a system to compel people to leave the private sector and work for the government on these projects that we all agreed that we wanted doing. And that's how fiat currency works. Okay, so if you understand that as an MMTer, you've also got to understand that a system like that needs automatic stabilizers, because you can't just have inflation and then go, well, we'll just make a fiscal adjustment in 6 months. That's why those automatic stabilizers to control inflation. Like I say, at the top end, when unemployment's quote unquote too low or the deficit's too large, inflation will happen, and there's an automatic stabilizer for that, and it's the taxation payments going to the government cool off the economy. And at the lower end, our automatic stabilizer at the moment is unemployment. Great if you're not one of the unemployed. Okay, that's great. But so what we're saying is, let's stand with the people who are not doing so well under that, and make a better. It's just a point of logic that having an employed buffer stock of labour is a better way of doing it than an unemployed buffer stock. So that's where I believe the argument is that is a superior price anchor, a superior automatic stabilizer to what we've already got, and it's so not hard to imagine. So I don't actually see it as a lefty type thing. MMT thought and MMT literature all came out of research centres that were for full employment and price stability.
I've never met an MMT who is against the job guarantee. And if I've met somebody who called themselves an MMT and then said they were against the job guarantee, discussing things with them actually highlighted the fact that actually they had a slightly different understanding of things that what MMT would propose.
Hopefully we've kind of put that to bed now. So what I was proposing, and it was this manifesto on the Real Progressives, Modern Monetary Theory for Real Progressives Forum. And just to sort of go, if we don't have a goal, because Stephen Hale wrote a very inspirational post 3 weeks ago, something like that, where he used this acronym that he's used before: push, persist until something happens. And I think we need to define the something for this to be called a movement. I think a global MMT movement, what we're trying to achieve is, in our respective countries, we are trying to achieve full employment at a dignified wage and price stability.
Yeah.
We can all get behind that because, like I say, it came out of these research centres for full employment and price stability. So, if you're not down with that, then I kind of don't know what you've been smoking.
Yeah. In more general terms, is the abolition of poverty, But
well, exactly. Well, I think full employment at a dignified wage covers that. Given that we recognise that people reject that policy goal of full employment because they're scared of inflation, or they think we can't afford it, we understand that a lot more people need to know MMT globally, and that's where we can all, I think, pull together as activists.
Speaking of which,
we can help each other. I can help somebody in the States on that basis, or Australia, because we've got that common goal.
A year ago, I could tell you not many people knew MMT, and now, even in 1 year, the difference is amazing. Now, people get offended if you tell them that they don't know MMT. Everybody has, most people has, at the very least, who are involved with politics, have at least heard of it, even if they haven't looked into it just yet. So we're coming to a point where people know us, and now it's so I liked your manifesto a lot, because I think most of our efforts had been about teach as many people as possible, and now we find ourselves actually having more in-depth debates about things like inflation, and about discussions about whether we're at full capacity and we might need to tax or not. We're having more complex debates that we might have had a year ago when we were just teaching the basics.
Yeah. So look, this manifesto, All right. Now, I will say, it's not a list of demands, or, and I've never written a manifesto in my life. And the reason I floated it on the Real Progressives Forum is because I felt like this is the highest number of people who know their MMT. And hopefully, if it's wrong, or I've left something out, that these guys will know. I'm not here trying and say, this is what it is. You everybody follow me because I wrote this thing. It's like, no, I'm saying I think this is what we're after, and if I'm wrong about it, just chime in and say it. But I'm also aware, and I don't think I've said it out loud yet. A belief that I have is every time you add a layer of complexity to something, you're going to lose a few followers. So I'm a big believer in things being as simple as they can possibly be, and no simpler. So not oversimplify it, but just keep it. So that's why I try to be as terse as possible with what's in the manifesto and what, and try and keep it down to one aim.
But can we, one thing that I'd like to clarify before you mention your manifesto and what's in it is, obviously the MMT community, it's quite organic. We don't know every single MMTer in the world, and the larger it grows, the more unmanageable it becomes. That's just natural how it is. We can try to, disseminate this manifesto to try and keep everybody with the same aim in mind, but we can't, because I think there's some expectation out there, especially on social media, for all of us to behave as a single kind of organized regiment.
Well, and almost. Also when you get pushback, say from Simon the guy, Simon Wren Lewis, when you're having your back and forth with these guys, which I just think, once he started saying things like, well, what if the government took your taxes and did X with it? I'm like, mate, you really don't get MMT, right?
Why do you keep talking like that?
I know he's cleverer than me. I know that.
He insists on talking about the economy in a way that most MMTs would frown on.
So it's not even like I'm very down with the fact that these guys are they've got letters after the name and everything, but it's hard to respect when things like that come out. And so anyway, when you're having your back and forth with them, what they tend to do is go, you MMTers are all like that. And
I know.
And it's a bit like...
It's like, I don't know every MMTer. I know like two people in this thread. I don't know who everybody else is.
Katie Hopkins had to use the same tactic. She would just like be really provocative all the time, and then somebody would say something really outlandish, like, I'm going to murder you and your family. And then she'd quote tweet that and go, look, I get this all the time. This is just
representative of all Corbynistas.
I think it'd be good if we tried not to give people grounds to do that. But again, we're not our brothers and sisters keepers.
I think people are just very bad at Twitter. Can I just say that? I mean, Twitter has opened.
It's almost like Twitter is bad.
Yeah,
it might be what you're saying. Twitter
is bad. Yes, for many things.
Podcasts are good.
Podcasts are better because it's a one-sided communication. There's no chance for backlash.
Somebody can backlash on Twitter if they want to.
Yeah.
We all have the right to reply.
But if it was, let's just make something clear. If it wasn't for Twitter, we would not be where we are. In the sense that nobody would know MMT, very few people would still know it. It would have been really, really slow if it wasn't for the likes of Twitter and Facebook. That's where a lot of the campaigning took place. I'm not even going to say that Twitter and Facebook hasn't been completely essential. And it can be a good weapon. It can be a good tool for disseminating very basic pieces of information. It's not a good tool for debating. Yeah, it's a terrible tool.
I think it's possible to control it. I think what happens is people. What really makes it come alive is emotion. So people get very used to writing in a really emotional way, like offensive or like overblown. Putting a lot of emotion into it. They get very used to it, and when you do that, you give your opponent a chance to debate you on tone. that's why I tend not to do that, because it's so it's like it forces them to wrestle with.
It puts them at the defensive.
I prefer them to wrestle with the content of what I've actually said rather than the way I've said it. So I always try and put things in the most neutral way possible. I think, I've probably not all the time, but I try and be quite neutral. And so that kind of brings me into this manifesto. I'm just going to say it, right? Just going to say it. You can
Item 1.
You can have a nap now, right? So I tried to keep it, and I'm very happy that there are 7 points in it because 7 deadly innocent frauds.
Yeah.
So
it should have been 10, like the 10 Commandments, and then we would have been really a cult.
Yeah, no, I like 7. It's a good number. But, so if anybody's listening and they think I've overreached or I've got something wrong, you're absolutely right. Tell me where I'm wrong. Be nice.
Be nice.
I know we're a cult.
Emphasis on nice.
I know we're a cult, but let's be nice to each other. And tell me, because what I'm trying to do is throw this out there and get people to go and see what we align on, rather than telling people to align. I'm just seeing where we're at now, and this is where I think we're at. I think we like MMT. MMT came from a drive to create full employment at a dignified wage and price stability. There's no way around that. That's where it came from. So I think that's what we ought to want as a movement. And then these 7 points are really a checklist of what I think we need to, before we act, run what we're about to do through this checklist and see whether it sort of fits this framework. Because if it doesn't, I think we might not be spreading MMT. So this is my framework. 1, I will deepen my knowledge of MMT. We need that. We need to do that to be able to talk about it.
And on that point, we have a great first textbook coming out next year in February. For all those who are comfortable with maths, go get it.
Very much looking forward to that.
Written by Bill Mitchell and Randall Ray, right? If I'm correct. It's called Macroeconomics.
The exciting thing to talk about, the exciting thing that got talked about before, again, is that there's no shortage of ways to deepen your knowledge of MMT.
Yeah.
If you like listening, there's a great podcast. It's called the MMT Podcast with Patricia and Christian.
You've already made a good start.
Money on the Left, and if you obviously Real Progressives are pretty much the daddy there with Steve Grumbine and his chats with Ellis and Warren and Stephanie and just about everybody.
Any video by Stephanie Kelton is fantastic, by the way.
Absolutely. So anyway, I will deepen my knowledge of MMT. I mean, that's obviously it nearly goes without saying, but I thought I would put that in there because no matter where we are with MMT, we could go deeper.
And of course, the gims.org.uk website is going to...
if you're in the UK and you don't know about this, well, shame on you, but it is, that stands for Gower Initiative for Modern Money Studies. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yep. And so it's GIMS, GIMMS.org.uk.
Yes.
So they've collected a load of resources there, and they do a great...
And they're always putting more on.
Yeah, they do a weekly blog called MMT Lens as well. So there's that. There's Bill Mitchell's blog. But if you go to Modern Monetary Theory for Real Progressives in the Facebook group, there's a pinned post there, which is pretty much an exhaustive list of all kinds of MMT resources. So, there's just, if you're into it, there is just 1,000,001 places you can go to deepen your knowledge. And, you can tweet me or Patricia or at MMT Podcast as well if you've got a question. 2, I will teach MMT to interested people. Yeah, again, sometimes, and I think early on, I don't know, it must almost be like it's almost like discovering your sexuality and coming out. You've just got to tell everybody. And the MMT can be like that. And my friends have had to suffer. And so I've decided to do a podcast instead of telling people who aren't interested. And so that's why I put that in there, that like there's an opportunity cost to telling people about MMT when they're not interested. I think we need to get very good at triaging
true. And
people.
I think sometimes it's hard to let go of arguments, but some people just are not that receptive and they don't want to learn it. So
exactly. And I think we can see sometimes on online interactions where people are just trying to waste your time, and it's like, as long as you're typing into the internet, somebody who definitely just wants to waste your time, you could have been influencing 10 people to
who
making
did want
them
to learn.
exactly, or at least making them curious. 3, I will endeavour to make people curious about MMT. Again, memes are very powerful ways of doing this. You post a meme that makes people go, "Huh, what do they mean by that?" And for instance, this is the great side of activism, where creativity comes into it, and
I think I saw an activist quote yesterday, it's an unrelated subject, but what she said was that in creating material for her activism, she always tried to make people laugh. That laughter was a very powerful tool for activism. And I think memes can do that if people are creative and people can include a joke. And some are really funny. I mean, some MMT.
Well, I'll tell you from first-hand experience, there are a lot of tools in comedy.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking to an expert here. I mean, I don't know, your last show.
Met quite a few of them. And number 4, I will make and share resources to help myself and others do 1, 2, and 3, which is to deepen the knowledge, to teach, to make people curious. And, and so I count on a personal level, making this podcast a way of making a tool that you can, if you've got MMT curious friends, you can look. Here's a half-hour intro to MMT, and there's the Money on the Left podcast as well, and Pocket Change as well. Search for those. I think they're personally a way that I like to experience media, and is a podcast. So that's why I decided to make one. 6, when teaching or debating, I will not make statements about MMT that I do not know to be 100% correct. Now, I know this sounds a little bit scoldy, and sorry about that, but I think, what we were talking about before, where as the movement grows, we're already starting to see this little fissure appearing between people who don't get that MMT is the job guarantee is part of MMT. So we're starting to see the first bit, the first bit of the movement getting big enough to now start to have schisms in it. So that was why I wanted to.
I'll give you an example. Like today, Matt Bruenig, who's the founder of People Policy Project, he's quite notorious on the left, and he has it out for MMT quite badly. And today he said, he quoted, he was talking about something Warren Mosler said, and he said that Warren Mosler wanted to keep interest rates up so that it would pay the rich people who held bonds the most.
I mean, we're talking literally Warren Zerp Mosler.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Warren. I mean, Warren Mosler's position on this has always been to put interest rates, leave them at 0,
exactly.
Precisely, so that you don't give a free handout to the rich.
Probably mistook that for because he says that if we're going to have zero interest rate policy, we got to have. Pay interest on reserve balances, maybe.
So I don't know if Matt Bruenig, willfully wanted to misrepresent MMT, but I imagine that he was willfully not too careful about getting it right.
Exactly.
And I think there is a lot of this out there, and he's very notorious. So as soon as he said it, everybody of his followers, MMT says this, MMT wants to give handout to the rich. And it's like, for the last 10 years, literally, we've been criticised for the opposite.
Also, I like Stephanie Kelton put out a tweet that was just all caps, deficits matter, written as many times as she could fit.
Exactly. That was because Krugman had said, Krugman is a US economist, he had said that MMT said that. Yeah,
I hadn't heard of him.
Well, for anybody. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sensitive. But, the point is
Who is this Donald Trump you speak of?
My point is that it's not just activists.
Yes,
it's people, it's academics who are supposed to read things properly, who then makes the outrageous statements about MMT and then complain that we are the ones misrepresenting MMT.
Yeah.
And so Krugman says MMT is thing that deficits don't matter. We have never said that, ever.
It's all, exactly. And it's all, so we can help that along by making sure that we know what we're talking about. And it is sometimes when you're trapped in a moment, it is tempting to give an answer that you're not 100% on because somebody's demanding an answer. And I think what you could do in that situation is go, I'll get back to you, but I think it's like this. And here's a link to what I think you're asking, because the links are out there, the videos are out there. It's okay to sort of say, I haven't got that nailed down yet, but I think this person's got it nailed down, or and I'll get back to you. And then you can go back to step one of the manifesto, which is I will deepen my knowledge of MMT, because somebody's they're sort of shone a light on an area where you might want to gen up on, so that you can be a better MMT. And that's the way it's worked for me anyway. And then finally to point 7, which was the only thing that was really controversial in the Real Progressives forum, which was point 7, I recognise that the job guarantee or transition job is part of MMT, and I need to be accomplished at explaining it. But there were a lot of people who didn't, not a lot, just a few people actually, when I asked, because I wanted to ask the people in the forum what the mood of the forum was, who thinks it is part of MMT and who doesn't. And it was something like maybe 6% of the people that answered didn't think it was a part of MMT, which again is like, we'll talk to, say, Bill next week, but
we're going to confirm this with him.
But even then, I was saying to people, no, it really is. It's in the literature, and they were commenting, show me a link. So I'd link to say, Randy Ray's got this concise piece of like point by point what I think is in MMT. Point number 7, job guarantee. It's there. So I linked to it, and then later on in the thread, the same person said, all the appeals to authority aren't going to change this. And it was like, well, I don't think you can sort of.
But what is it?
If you learn, first of all, you asked for an appeal to authority. You asked me to link you to something that backed up what I said. And then the second point is that they kind of are. I'm an anarchist. I think, authority is not self-justifying. But the point is, it's not all authority is illegitimate. It's, some is. We've tested the legitimacy of this by studying it, and it's legitimate authority. And, the person that, the 5 core economists that wrote the MMT literature, they kind of get to say what is in MMT, and when they say the job guarantee is in there, and then I put it in a forum of MMTers and go, okay, so if you don't accept that these 5 people, opinion on their own body of work matters, then what do MMTers think? Well, 94% of them think it's in MMT. That's nearly consensus. So I do hate to appeal to authority, but what can you do? You've got most MMTers and the core MMT economists saying the job, and on a point of logic on the automatic stabilizer that the job guarantee is, that it's part of MMT. And then you've got 2 people on Facebook, or more than that, maybe a dozen people on Facebook say, well, I don't think it is, in the face of all that. And it's like, well, I don't know. It's just, when you look at the weight of evidence on both sides.
The job guarantee, or was he just
no
arguing
idea.
that it wasn't part of the core?
I don't know.
Was this just being pedantic, or was
I don't
that?
know. I don't know. I tried not to go too far off topic, and the topic was, is it or isn't it MMT? And I just think it should be as simple as that. And so I think people need to know that, because they're going to come a cropper, because let's say the whole MMT movement just gets rid of the job guarantee and it now becomes this global mansplaining movement where we just go on the internet and tell everybody they're wrong about deficits and and then what? Where are we?
Speaking of the hashtag #LearnMMT, and I'm open to discussion on this, some people find it patronizing.
Okay, well,
Online. It was recently highlighted to me. Obviously, I don't think we've ever meant it in a patronizing way. We just mean everybody should learn MMT. But I think sometimes
it's a healthy thing. Yeah.
It can be misunderstood. I would suggest dropping it in favor of just the MMT hashtag, but of course I can't force anybody to do this, but I'm just
I can't
putting this out
believe you're
there.
forcing us all to...
I'm just putting this out there to discuss.
You're such a cultist.
I know I am.
Oh, right, listen.
Let's talk about this, and we can decide.
We've got to, we've been talking for a long time, and I don't know if we've got any listeners left. But thanks for going the distance, and we will get some smoking economics gurus talking to us in a few weeks' time, and I hope that this has been something to add fuel to your fire, and I'm sorry if we've stood on anybody's toes about what MMT is and what it isn't, and I would just urge people to engage with me about whether I'm right about this manifesto. I'll put it as a post somewhere and pin it, and but have at it. It's there. I'm open to modifying it, but I do think those 7 points are kind of not. They make sense to me, and let's chat. Let's try and keep it civil. All right. Okay. All right. We'll catch you later. Have you got any closing remarks?
No, just saying
young
that
lady?
this. I like the manifesto personally, but obviously I want feedback. I think if everybody wants to, has any suggestions or anything.
And the idea is it's not an MMT manifesto, it's an MMT activists manifesto. Mm-hmm. So it's just about a checklist of how to do, of how we should proceed. If we're inspired by MMT, how do we want to put it in the world? And just a checklist of things, because I think sometimes we can get caught up with rowing with people on the internet to no end, and I'm trying to cut that out, basically. Obviously it can be an end in itself, having a row with somebody. As long as
keep the discussion productive. I think.
But anyway, I just think think of the opportunity cost. Think of the people you could be talking to are actually receptive. I think we just need to get really good at triaging people and deciding quite early on, is this person just for want of a better word, a shit poster, or are they or are they actually wanting to do they want to know what or and so
great.
Okay, so we're going to sign off now. Thanks for listening to us. I know Patricia really went on and on, and I tried to jump in and stop her.
Sure you did.
No, I'm sorry for going on, and really, truly. And so, say hi, be nice, and we'll catch you next time. That was the MMT podcast with Patricia Pino and Christian Riley. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at MMT Podcast, or I'm at Christ Riley, spelled ChristReilly. And Patricia is at Patricia N. Pino, spelled PatricianPino. You can also email me at christriley@outlook.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope to hear from you. The Osama bin Laden of economics.
Wow.
Sorry,
He's gonna like that.
I'm going to cut that out.